What happens when you see things as they really are? A Buddhist perspective. When most people hear seeing things as they are, they think, I need to pay more attention. Look more carefully. That seems reasonable. But that's not it. You can stare at something for hours, noting every detail, and still not see it as it is. Because the problem isn't lack of attention. The problem is that attention itself is already colored by reaction. You're not just looking. You're evaluating, comparing, judging. This is beautiful. That reminds me of something. And the moment you do that, you've stopped seeing what's there. You're seeing your relationship to what's there. You're seeing your story about it. Imagine you're looking at a flower. You observe the petals, the colors, the light. And you think, I'm really seeing this flower. But then notice your thoughts. So beautiful. Like my grandmother's roses. I should take a photo. None of those thoughts are the flower. They're your reactions. And each reaction places a filter between you and what's actually there. This is what the Buddha meant by samjñā, the mental function that labels and interprets. We need it to navigate the world, but we mistake the label for the thing itself. We see flower and think we've seen something real. But flower is just a concept. What's actually there is more fluid, more immediate, more alive than any concept could capture. So when Buddhism talks about seeing things as they are, there's a precise term, yathabhuta jnana dassana, knowledge and vision of things as they actually are. Not as we want them to be. Not as conditioning tells us they are, but as they are, right now, before interpretation begins. This seeing has three dimensions. First is seeing without the filter of craving and aversion. Most of the time, we don't see people. We see person I like, person I need, person to avoid. We see the world through, what can this do for me? But what if you could look without that filter? That would be different seeing altogether. Second is seeing without being trapped in concepts. The Buddha didn't reject concepts. He used them. He said, I use the language of the world without grasping it. The problem isn't using words like person or self. The problem is believing those words point to something fixed and ultimately real. There's a beautiful passage where a nun named Vajira says, just as with an assemblage of parts, the word chariot is used, so when the aggregates are present, there's the convention of a being. When you look at a chariot, you see wheels, axle, frame. You don't find some essence called chariot existing separately. Chariot is just a convenient label. The same for being, self, person. These are conventions, useful, necessary, but not ultimate realities. The danger isn't using the word self. The danger is grasping it, believing there's something solid behind that word. Third is seeing the three characteristics of all phenomena: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. These aren't theories to accept on faith. They're characteristics you can see directly, like you see color. When the mind becomes quiet enough, you start to see, actually see, that everything is changing moment by moment. Not, things will die eventually, but right now, in this breath, there's a rising and passing. Nothing lasts long enough to be grasped. And there's no fixed I experiencing any of this. Just experience happening, with no separate experiencer behind it. But here's the key distinction. Understanding isn't seeing, Understanding is knowing about. Seeing is knowing directly. Philosopher Bertrand Russell called these knowledge by description and knowledge by acquaintance. You can read 100 books about sugar's taste, but until you taste it, you don't know sweetness. Similarly, you can study impermanence for years and still not see it. Because seeing requires direct contact, unmediated experience. The Buddha said, "Were someone to say, 'I will describe a coming, a going, a passing away, an arising of consciousness apart from form, from feeling, from perception, from fabrications,' that would be impossible. Consciousness arises in dependence on conditions. When you see that directly, not as concept, but as living reality, something shifts. You realize, this isn't happening to me. This is just happening. There's no separate me standing apart. This is what seeing as it is means. Seeing without desire and aversion's filter. Seeing through concepts without being trapped by them. And seeing the three characteristics not as ideas, but as experience's texture itself. That kind of seeing isn't philosophical. It's transformative. Because when you see reality as it is, you stop fighting it. And when you stop fighting reality, suffering loses its ground. So why seeing? Why not doing? After all, isn't Buddhism about how we act in the world? Action is important. The Buddha taught morality, compassion, right livelihood. But action alone doesn't address suffering's root. You can do all the right things and still be miserable inside. You can help people, be kind, follow every precept, and still be driven by craving, caught in the prison of me and mine. Think about loneliness. Someone reaches out, socializes, makes efforts to connect. Sometimes that helps. But often, even surrounded by people, loneliness remains. Why? Because the root isn't the absence of others. The root is how you see yourself. If you see yourself as fundamentally separate, isolated, no amount of company will touch that. But if you see clearly, see that loneliness is just a sensation arising and passing, not a truth about who you are, then loneliness loses its grip. Not because you did anything, because you saw through the illusion. This is why the Buddha emphasized seeing. Doing operates on the surface. Seeing goes to the root. As he said, "From craving as condition comes clinging." Such is the origination of this entire mass of suffering. From the cessation of craving comes the cessation of clinging. Such is the cessation of this entire mass of suffering. Not through willpower, through seeing the chain clearly. But some think, so I need to think more carefully, analyze, figure things out intellectually. That's also not it. The Buddha didn't reject thinking. He taught samma sankappa, right intention, as the second path factor. He emphasized yoniso manasikara, wise attention. Even in first jhana, there's directed thought. So what's the problem? Most thinking doesn't lead to seeing. Most thinking reinforces separation. When you think about something, you create distance between you and it. But with inner experience, fear, anger, sense of self, that distance is false. There is no separate you observing your fear. There's just fear arising, and the sense of observer is part of the fear itself. Thinking about it doesn't dissolve that construction. It strengthens it. The Buddha said, "When one attends inappropriately, unarisen fermentations arise, and arisen fermentations increase. When one attends appropriately, unarisen fermentations do not arise, and arisen fermentations are abandoned. It's not about more or less thinking. It's about how you attend. Inappropriate attention builds stories, strengthens me and mine. Appropriate attention investigates reality, questions assumptions, leads toward clear seeing. Ultimately, thinking is conceptual. It operates in ideas, comparisons, past and future. But reality, the reality you're trying to see, isn't conceptual. It's happening right now, before thought arises. You don't think your way to knowing fire is hot. You touch it, and you know. That knowing is immediate, direct, undeniable. This is prajna, wisdom, direct knowing. When it arises, you're not thinking, this is impermanent. You're seeing impermanence right now, as immediate as seeing color. You're not thinking, there's no self. You're looking for the self and unable to find it. And this is where transformation happens. When you see, really see, that what you're grasping is already dissolving, that there's no you to grasp it anyway, then letting go isn't something you do. It happens by itself. The Buddha described this quality as sanditthika, visible here and now, and akalika, timeless. The Dhamma is visible here and now, timeless, inviting verification, pertinent, to be realized by the wise for themselves. You don't have to wait to know if it's true. You can see it directly right now. That directness, that immediacy, that's what makes seeing transformative. So why seeing? Because doing without seeing tends to be superficial. Thinking without seeing tends to proliferate confusion. But seeing cuts through. Seeing is direct. Seeing is immediate. And seeing, when clear enough, transforms everything. What exactly did the Buddha teach about this? What's the method, the path? It starts with right view, samadhi, first factor of the Eightfold Path, and that's not arbitrary. Right view comes first because everything else depends on it. Without clear seeing, your intentions will be misguided, your actions based on confusion. The Buddha taught two levels. First is mundane right view, understanding karma, that actions have consequences, moral causation. This creates the foundation for ethical life, but it's not the ultimate goal. Second is supramundane right view, seeing the Four Noble Truths directly, not as concepts you agree with, but as living reality you can't unsee. This is where transformation happens. The Buddha defined it precisely. What is right view? Knowledge of suffering, knowledge of the origin of suffering, knowledge of the cessation of suffering, and knowledge of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. This is called right view. Simple, direct, not believe, not think about, see. But how do you develop that seeing? Through the four foundations of mindfulness, satipatthana. The Buddha said, "This is the direct path for the purification of beings, for the surmounting of sorrow and lamentation, for the disappearance of pain and distress, for the attainment of the right method, and for the realization of unbinding, namely, the four frames of reference. The direct path, the straight shot. First, mindfulness of body. You observe breath, posture, movement, sensations. As you do, something becomes clear. The body isn't me. It's a collection of elements, processes, all changing, none under your control. Identification with body begins to loosen. Second, mindfulness of feelings. Pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Usually we react instantly. Grasp pleasant, push away unpleasant. But here you just observe. You see feelings arise based on contact, stay briefly, pass. They're not yours. They're just part of the flow. Third, mindfulness of mind. You observe the mind state itself. Greed present? Notice it. Absent? Notice that. Clarity, confusion. Mind is like weather, always changing, never still. No stable owner of these states, just states flowing through. Fourth, mindfulness of phenomena. You see patterns, structures. The hindrances arising, desire, aversion, restlessness, the factors of awakening. And the three marks: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, non-self. Not as ideas, but as characteristics of every experience. Now here's crucial. The Buddha didn't teach this as purely analytical. He didn't separate vipassana, insight, from samatha, calm. In the Nikayas, they're always together. Two wings of one bird. Insight without calm is agitation. Calm without insight is blissful ignorance. You need both. The mind must be stable enough to see clearly and sharp enough to cut through illusions. What do you see when this matures? The three marks become undeniable. Every sensation arises and passes. Every thought appears and disappears. Even the sense of being a separate observer. When you look for it, you can't find it. It's constructed moment by moment, and when those elements change, you change. There's no solid ground anywhere. Nothing lasts long enough to be grasped. And there's no one separate from the process doing the grasping. The Buddha said, "What is impermanent is suffering. What is suffering is non-self. And what is non-self should be seen with right understanding thus. This is not mine. I am not this. This is not myself." That phrase appears again and again. It's a formula for cutting through identification. You apply it to everything. Body? Not mine, not me, not myself. Feelings, thoughts. Consciousness itself? Not mine, not me, not myself. When that seeing becomes direct, not something you're telling yourself but experiencing, the whole structure of me and mine starts to dissolve. Not because you destroyed it, because you saw through it. This is the heart of the Buddha's teaching. Seeing impermanence so clearly, you stop trying to hold on. Seeing unsatisfactoriness so clearly, you stop expecting permanent happiness from impermanent things. Seeing non-self so clearly, you stop defending something that was never there. And in that seeing, the fight ends. What happens when you actually see? When this becomes direct recognition. Suffering loses its foundation. Suffering in Buddhism means dukkha, the stress from wanting things different than they are. That tension comes from trying to grasp what cannot be grasped, trying to make permanent what's impermanent, trying to protect a self that was never solid. When you see impermanence directly, really see things dissolving moment by moment, you stop trying to hold them, not through detachment, but through recognition. There's nothing to hold. Once you see that, the grasping stops by itself. When you see non-self clearly, look for me and can't find it. Worry about me becomes absurd. Like being afraid for a dream character after waking. The thing you were afraid for isn't there. This is nibbana, extinguishing the fires of greed, hatred, delusion. The Buddha said, "There is, monks, an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned. If there were not that unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, no escape would be discerned from what is born, become, made, conditioned." Not a mystical state, just reality without distortion. When the mind stops grasping and resisting, that seeing brings freedom. Not to do whatever you want, but freedom from being driven. You still act, still have preferences, but without compulsion. No desperate need to be someone, have something, avoid something. When you see there's no separate you to be driven, just a process responding to conditions, the mechanism of being driven loses its power. And compassion arises naturally. When you see non-self deeply, boundaries between me and you become transparent. The separation was always illusion. When you see all beings caught in the same confusion, suffering from the same ignorance, compassion isn't obligation, it's recognition. As the Buddha taught, just as a mother would protect her only child with her life, even so should one cultivate a boundless love to all beings. The artificial barrier between my suffering matters and their suffering doesn't falls away. This doesn't mean withdrawal. You still live fully, work, relationships, responsibilities, but without entanglement. You play the game knowing it's a game, without desperation, without needing to win at all costs, without devastation when things don't go your way. What happens after seeing? You don't become someone special. You simply stop fighting reality. When resistance drops, what remains is just this, right here, exactly as it is, not needing to be different. And in that, there's peace, independent of circumstances, freedom independent of getting what you want, compassion independent of others deserving it. Because you've seen through the core illusion that there was ever a separate you needing protection, needing fulfillment, needing anything. In that seeing, the whole problem dissolves. Not because you solved it, because you saw it was never real.